Good evening, good evening. Hello, Paula. Hello, Anna. Hello, everyone. I hope you are ready for the end of this novel, starting now, by Debbie McComber. It has been an awesome read, exciting, and I cannot wait to see how the book is going to end. So, let's get started with our prayer tonight. And tonight's prayer is, the Lord will always guide you. Isaiah 58:11. The Lord will always guide you. It's hard to see up there. There we go. The Lord will always guide you. Isaiah 58:11. And that is so true. The Lord will always guide you. Now, let's get into this last chapters of an awesome read. And then we will be moving on to a thriller. How awesome is that going to be? Let me get comfortable. I'll take a drink. Get all comfy. I hope you are too, because I am sure comfy. And here we go. Chapter 39. Libby didn't hear from Philip all weekend, although she clung to the hope that he would return her calls. By Saturday night, she was an emotional disaster, convinced that she had lost him in the same way she had lost Joe. Libby cuddled up on the sofa, wrapped a blanket around her body, and hibernated the rest of the day, watching the Food Network and reruns of Law and Order. Philip was gone. He basically told her not to pursue him. For him, there was no turning back. The decision had been made. He was through, and no amount of reassurance would change that. Amy Jo was out of her life too. Libby's dream of nurturing and loving that beautiful baby girl was over. Philip had made what seemed like hurtful accusations, telling her she had hid her grief by burying herself in her work. At that time, she denied it, denied everything. But now she could see that he was right. When the Armstrongs had decided to adopt Ava's baby, it felt as if the infant had been ripped from her arms. The ache simply wouldn't go away. The distraction she had chosen was the same one she used for nearly her entire life. She studied, she worked, she did whatever it took so she wouldn't have to face the pain confronting her. All she had left was her career. Libby had worked hard to prove herself, to make her mother proud. Yet despite everything that she accomplished, since returning to the firm, she wasn't happy. How could she be happy when her personal life was in shambles? She missed her friends and the life she had carved out for herself while unemployed. She missed Philip and the closeness they had once shared. And yet Libby could hear her mother's voice from her sickbed telling her how important it was to make the most out of every opportunity because life held no guarantees. Molly Morgan had warned Libby to be a success, but suddenly Libby realized that her mother had wanted her to be successful in life. Life consisted of more than top grades in school or a career in law. Happiness meant opening herself up with others, being loving and accepting the love of others. Her mother had wanted Libby to be a whole person. For Libby, that meant strong relationships, a husband, family, friends, and work that fit with her talents. She had been so focused on making partner as if the title alone would fill all the empty aches in her life. What she learned from Philip was that she needed so much more than a title on a door and a place on a company letterhead. She needed the family she had found, the friends, but most of all, she needed Philip. Here she was, weeks away from achieving her goal, and she was utterly miserable. She earned the position of partner, or she would very soon. She had it in the palm of her hand. It meant nothing. She felt nothing. Nothing at all. Not elation, not joy, not pride. The whole inside of her should be filled up and overflowing. It wasn't. She had worked and searched and sacrificed for nothing. Because she had dealt poorly with the failed adoption, Libby had let Ava down, and Philip was right. Seeing the teenager reminded her of Amy Jo and of loss. It was more than the failed adoption. It was every loss Libby had suffered throughout the years. Her mother, her marriage, her job, one loss after another, until they became an insurmountable pile that overwhelmed her every time she forced to confront it. She had let that pile come between her and Philip, between her and their future together. No matter what happened from this point forward, Libby was determined to stay in touch with Ava. She might not have control over much else, but this she could and would do because Libby knew what it was like to be without a mother. She could help the young woman navigate through the twisting, turning madness of adolescence. She would be Ava's mentor. For years, Libby had thought of herself as motherless. It suddenly struck her that that wasn't true. Libby had a mother, a wonderful, loving, supportive, encouraging mother. She wasn't here any longer. Molly had gone, but she would always be with Libby in the same way that Ava's mother would always be with her. Darlene Carmichael loved her granddaughter, but much like Libby's father, She was caught up in her own grief. The older woman did the best she could with what she had, but that wasn't enough for Ava. Darling didn't understand the emotional needs of her granddaughter in the same way that Libby Fisher hadn't understood hers. Libby was determined to provide all the encouragement and support Ava needed. No one had been there for Libby, but she would stand by Ava because she knew far too well what it was like to feel alone, isolated, and afraid. Ava wasn't the only person Libby had abandoned since going back to the firm. She hadn't chatted with Lydia in weeks. The first time she had seen Abby Higginbom since Scott's birthday party had been when she had gone in search of Philip. Because she was distraught, Libby hadn't exchanged more than a couple of sentences with the woman she had once considered a good friend. Sunday morning, Libby climbed out of bed after a restless night. She had tossed and turned for hours. As she sat on the edge of her mattress, feet on the ground, she realized she had a huge decision to make. She could either move forward and take positive action or spend the rest of her life a failure in every way that mattered. Unsure of what to do first, she dressed and decided to attend church. Worship services were held just down the street from her condo. Libby wasn't sure which denomination it was, but she wasn't overly concerned. After losing Amy Jo, she had sat in the hospital chapel and ignored God, reaching out instead to her mother. Now she was willing to admit she needed God, wanted Him in her life, guiding her. The organ music greeted her as she ascended the church steps. She sat in the back pew and reached for the hymnal, hoping no one would notice her. Coming into the worship services, her spirits were low. But gradually, as she bowed her head in prayer, a sense of peace came over her. It seemed as if God had been waiting for her to turn to Him all along. It had taken these hits, these gigantic losses, for her to realize what she needed and how best to proceed with life. Libby returned to her condo and sat down at her desk. She turned on her computer, and as she did, she noticed the withered plant sitting on the corner of her desk, the very plant she nursed back to health during her months of unemployment. "You poor neglected thing," she whispered. Picking it up, she carried it into the kitchen, set it on the plate, and watered and fed it plant food. Then she set it into the sun, determined to love it back to health, if it wasn't too late. And that takes us to chapter 40. Sunday afternoon, Libby typed out her letter of resignation to Bernhardt, Smith, and Crandall. How shocked Herschel would be. Actually, she was pretty shaken herself. It might be too late for her and Philip, although she prayed it wasn't. This was something she needed to do for herself, for her future. As soon as she was finished, she signed the letter and placed it inside an envelope and contacted Robin. "You want to go shopping or to a movie?" "Libby, is that you?" Robin repeated as if hearing a voice from the grave. "You aren't working?" I thought you worked 24/7 these days. Not anymore. Starting when? Robin asked with a skeptical lift to her voice. Starting today. Now, about that movie. I'm absolutely craving buttered popcorn. It seemed Robin was at a complete loss for words. Sure, I guess. Great. I'll pick you up in 30 minutes. The two spent a glorious afternoon together, and then later Libby stopped by Ava's house and the two went out to dinner. I want to be a singer, Ava confessed over taco salads. I think I'm good. There are auditions at school for a musical, and I'm thinking I should try out. What do you think? She asked Libby shyly, her gaze focused on her food. Absolutely. Ava smiled. Then I will. Can I call you if I get a part? You can call me anytime, even if you're at work. Of course. Use my cell phone number, though, okay? Okay. Ava smiled, softened as she reached for her glass of milk. Monday morning, Libby had never felt better. She strolled into the office and delivered coffee and donuts to the receptionist. Herschel would like to see you right away, Lois said. Perfect, she said. So happy it was all she could do not to waltz down the hall into Herschel's luxurious office. He motioned her inside as soon as he looked up. Libby, come in. Good morning, Herschel. Yes, certainly, in a cheerful mood, he said, smiling himself. And I'm about to give you a reason to be even happier. Oh, really? Libby doubted he could say or do anything that would match the sense of peace that she had had ever since she typed out her letter of resignation. It meant she was back to square one, but she would deal with that. Abby had mentioned a fundraising position at the hospital some time ago. Perhaps it was still open and she could apply for it. The partners and I have decided you've done such an outstanding job since your return that we're moving ahead and making you full partner, even earlier than we originally intended. You've proven what an asset you are to the firm. 2 new clients in 3 weeks. Martha Reed is happy, and we all know how much that sizable account means to this firm. Libby held up her hand, stopping him. Before you say anything more, you might want to read this letter. Stepping forward, she handed him the envelope. Herschel frowned as he tore it open. He quickly scanned the contents, and as he did, his eyes narrowed. You're resigning? You said yourself I should go out and get a life, and I did. I really did. And I've discovered that I love my new life, the friends I've made, the family I've formed. Frowning, Herschel leaned back in his chair and stippled his fingers beneath his chin. He motioned for her to take a seat, which she did. What about your career? He asked. You're an excellent attorney. Are you sure this is something you want to give up? What do you plan to do with yourself? Go back into your own practice? I don't know. I haven't decided. The hospital may have a job opening for a fundraiser. Herschel frown deepened, as if he couldn't see her in such a position. And you would enjoy that. Again, she was uncertain. I believe I would. The hours would be more reasonable. It would mean a substantial cut in your pay. She grinned and crossed her legs. If nothing else, 7 months of unemployment taught me how to live frugal. And you know what? It wasn't so bad. And Herschel, one lesson I've learned through all of this, that money does not buy happiness. It really doesn't. I thought making partner was the end, but yet I'm willing to turn my back and walk away without a qualm because of what it will cost me in other ways. I thought making partner was what you wanted, Herschel said. I thought it was too, but it all goes back to March 5th. March 5th, he repeated. That's the day you called me into the office and let me go. I was devastated and angry. You offered me some advice. At the time, I didn't want to hear it. But I heard enough, and I am grateful I did. You claimed it was an opportunity for me. Just looking at the comments, guys. Basically, you told me how important it was to enjoy life. I took your words to heart. Not right away, mind you, but soon enough. I volunteered at the hospital and fell in love and had the opportunity to adopt a baby. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. She faltered slightly when mentioning Amy Jo and paused long enough to regain her composure. But she's with a good family who will love her too. When I lost the opportunity to make the baby a part of my life, I reverted back to everything that was familiar. The job offer from the firm couldn't have come at a better time. And I did what I've always done. I buried my feelings and focused on being the best attorney money could buy. Working hard hasn't brought me fulfillment or lasting satisfaction. My career didn't fill the hole of grief and loss I experienced, no matter how many hours I put in. Libby paused, half expecting Herschel to comment. He didn't. So she continued. Stepping back into this grind had exactly the opposite effect. Instead of helping me forget, it made everything 10 times worse. I realize now how important my friends have become to me. I neglected my relationship with Ava because I thought it was more important to bring in another client to the firm and earn my brownie points than spend time with her. That was another mistake. Ava reminds me of a girl I was at her age, motherless, bereft, frightened, and alone. I consider it my duty and my honor to be a mentor and a friend to her. What about the young man you love? It may be too late for us. I don't know yet. I hope not. But if so, I'll recover, and so will he. Herschel straightened in his chair, seemingly deep in thought. You're too important to the firm for me to let you just walk away. She loved hearing it, but his rare praise wasn't enough to convince her to change her mind. Oh my. We can't take the chance of losing the REIT account. Would you be willing to continue working with her? She's difficult to please, and she's obviously attached to you. Libby was fond of the older woman, and she welcomed the opportunity to work with Mrs. Reed, but not if it would cost her everything that was important. And the Buckleys, if you wish, since you brought them into the firm, he added, and the new clients, if you want. I'm not sure I understand, Libby said, confused, but eager to hear what he had to say. I come in at 9 and leave at 6 every night, Herschel said. I had to make myself leave the office because my marriage was at risk. My children didn't know me. I thought it was most important to work hard and give them the material goods they wanted than to spend time with them. In the process, I nearly lost everything I valued. I could see the same thing happening to you, Libby. But I don't know if I can slow down. You can and you will. I'll help you. From this point forward, you aren't to arrive at the office before 9, and you are never to leave at 6. Your workload will be cut in half, and you will still be partner. What about bringing in new clients? You've already had your client load. Mrs. Reed, the Buckleys, and the new clients I brought in, but only if I want. Exactly. What will the other partners say? Herschel smiled. They'll be fine. I'll make sure of it. I didn't fight hard enough for you the first time around, and I won't make that mistake again. Besides, you've proven your worth. Go and talk to your young man. Have the family you want and the career too. I'll help you find the balance, the same way a good friend helped me years ago. Libby sat in the wingback leather chair, too stunned to respond. Oh, and Libby, congratulations. You're a partner in the firm. Was that... He tore her letter of resignation in half and tossed it in the wastebasket? He rose out of his high-back leather chair, came around to the front of the desk. He stood directly in front of Libby and placed his hands on her shoulders. I wish you nothing but happiness. Too stunned to react, Libby thanked him and then headed into her office. The first person she phoned was Robin. Did you do it? Herschel talked me into staying. The firm is cutting my hours and responsibilities. Basically, I only have Mrs. Reed and a few other accounts. It made sense that he'd want her to stay for the Reed account alone. Martha Reed had already made her opinions clear. She preferred to work with Libby. If Libby left, then it was highly probable that the older woman would as well. And the firm couldn't risk that happening, not again. You'll handle just a handful of accounts? Robin made it sound too good to be true. Oh, and that's not all. You mean there's more? Libby couldn't have held back a smile for $1,000,000. Her face actually ached with the joy that flooded her. I was made partner. Robin laughed outright. Talk about having your cake and eating it too. Congratulations, Libby. Don't congratulate me yet. I still got to win back Philip. You will, her friend said with utter confidence. Libby sincerely hoped Robin was right. Her next call was to Abby. After Libby delivered her news, Abby said, A little birdie told me Philip Stone will be returning to the hospital on Wednesday. Tell the little birdie that I appreciate the information. Wednesday afternoon, Libby stopped by the hospital to rock the newborns. Sharon Jennings did a double take and then greeted her with a warm hug. The babies have missed you, the head nurse said, and so have I. Libby donned a gown and entered the nursery, opening for the infant who was crying the loudest, gently picking him up. She settled into the rocking chair, looked down at the baby with the deep red face. Now, now, she whispered. What has gotten you so upset? She started singing to him as she gently rocked back and forth. A little more than 20 minutes later, Philip stepped out of the elevator. He walked directly past the nursery, glanced inside, and continued on for another couple of steps before he stopped, abruptly did a double take. He paused, continuing to stare at her, and then after a couple of seconds, continued on his way as if he hadn't seen her. 10 minutes later, he was back. This time, he stepped into the nursery, and his gaze went straight to Libby. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, sounding none too friendly. Libby placed one hand on her lip, rocking the babies, in case you've forgotten. I was here 2 or 3 times a week for several months. That was before you went back to the firm, he argued. What happened? Did they lay you off already? No, she said. I made partner. He frowned as though he wasn't sure he had heard her correctly. Partner? Yes, she returned simply. Actually, that came as something of a shock to me, too. I had gone into the office Monday morning, intent on handing in my resignation. You were going to resign? He continued to stand several feet away from her, and his back stiff and his shoulders tense. Libby returned the sleeping infant to his crib. I tried to quit, but Herschel talked me into staying with reduced hours. I'll be working on a few accounts, and that's it. Why would you be so willing to walk away from a career you love? She shrugged. There were far more important goals I had wanted to achieve, such as being a mentor to Ava, and a good friend to Robin, Lydia, and Abby. And that's only the beginning. I'm not an accomplished knitter, but I'm fairly good, and I have this sweater that I have been working on for the longest time. It's about time I finished it. A sweater. For a man I know. A friend? He's that for sure. A very good friend. But I would like him to be so much more. Their eyes connected. Philip's gaze narrowed as if he wasn't sure he should trust her. Libby's heart pounded so hard it felt like a sledgehammer slamming against her ribs, to the point that she pressed her palm over her heart. This was it. Crunch time. Philip either accepted or rejected her. Will it make a difference this time, he added. There's a certain fulfillment in working with the law and being made partner, but I know what's most important, and it isn't my career. He raised his brows but didn't respond to the news. I've discovered I want so much more out of life. Like what? He crossed his arms as though protecting himself, standing guard over his own heart. A husband, for one thing, she said, shocked at how low her voice dipped. He cocked his head to one side. That's a possibility. Children, too, Libby added. Philip's mouth twisted as though restraining a smile. That's negotiable. Oh, Philip, she whispered. I couldn't lose you. I just couldn't. Dropping his arms, Philip took 2 giant steps toward her. He locked her in his embrace and lifted her 2 feet off the floor. Libby's arms circled his neck. I don't want to face the future without you. I love you, Philip. Her voice choked with the sincerity of her words. Nothing I've strived to achieve means a blasted thing if I can't share it with you. He closed his eyes and nodded. I didn't make it easy for you, did I? I convinced myself we were finished. I thought it's best for us to have a clean break, but I couldn't stop thinking about you, about the promise we have together. I love you. I thought I could walk away, but it didn't take long for me to realize I couldn't leave matters the way they were. I couldn't stop loving you. Don't try so hard next time, she teased. His gaze held hers for the longest time. I love you, he whispered, huskily as he brought his mouth to hers. Libby gave herself over to his kiss, slanting her mouth over his and opening to him like a blossom in the warmth of a summer sunshine. They broke apart when Sharon cleared her throat. Libby pressed her forehead against his. I'm ready to spend my whole life with you, starting now, she whispered. Funny, Philip joked. I was thinking the same thing. And that takes us to the end of the book. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What an awesome, awesome book that was. And I am so happy that they are back together. It's not too late. Paula said she hoped it wasn't too late, and it wasn't. What an awesome ending. You know, I was kind of hoping that is how this story ended. They would get together, and she would have a better job. But hey, what she got at the law firm, good enough for me. And I want to thank all of you for listening to Starting Now by Demi McComber. And I will see you next week at the book club, and we will be moving on to our thriller. Until then, you all have a wonderful night. Sleep tight and sweet dreams.